So welcome everybody to Laura's dissertation defense. We're all here to support her. And I'm Dr. Craig Chalquist. I have the honor to chair this committee. And at this time, I'd like to ask the committee to introduce themselves, I think starting with our internal reader and then our honored external reader.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jennifer Wilth. I'm in the Transformative Inquiry Department at CIIS and was really delighted when Laura reached out to me. I really find her topic fascinating and important. And thanks for being here.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I'm Doretta Cornell. I was for a long time a professor at Pace University, but now I'm retired. I did my doctorate at the University of Missouri, Columbia, and it was on myths, and that's how I got involved with this. Somebody that knows Laura knows somebody who said, "Oh, Doretta does myths." So I was really happy to be invited. So it was great.
That's great. We're glad you're here.
Thank you.
So I'm going to give you a very brief overview of what we're doing, and then I'm going to hand it right off to Laura for the presentation. So Laura will have about roughly 40 minutes to present, and she's going to be talking about what her doctoral work was, the methodology that she used, the results, maybe some implications for future research, because she got into a really rich area, and it's full of possibilities. So she might go into that depending on how much time. And then when Laura finishes her presentation, the committee will have an opportunity to ask questions. And by East-West psychology custom, I usually ask the external reader to go first. And we'll each pose maybe one or two questions. And once we've had a chance to do that, we will go into a separate breakout room, the committee, and confer. And once we do that, and I'll remind you of this when we get there, all of you who are present to support Laura will have a chance to ask your own questions or just check in with her while we have our discussion. And then when we come back, we'll give the decision. So that will be our ritual. That's our version of a custom that actually goes back centuries through academic history. So with that,
torture.
Yep. So we got to keep doing it. At this point, Laura, are you ready to go?
I believe I am. Let me just take a few seconds to share the PowerPoint on the screen. Can everybody see it?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Thank you again, Craig. Thank you, Dr. Wells. Thank you, Dr. Cornell, for sticking with me for the support. Ishtar, Stefan, you all have been like on the sidelines and encouraging me, and I thank you for that. I'm forever grateful for that. Okay, yeah, let's get this party started. So the name of my dissertation is #Sophia, Reclaiming Our Wisdom from Information Technology and Social Media, our hermeneutic exploration. So we'll unpack all of that as we go along. Let's see, okay. Incidentally, this is my third time in my life using Zoom. So if I kind of myself a little bit, I'm sorry. This, when the problem asks what's wrong, and Keanu Reeves is the perfect person for that, I felt like I didn't choose this issue. I felt like the issue chose me. It started as just observation of my life being Generation X and existing before technology in terms of social media, and even before emails. You know, my childhood and my partner's childhood, anyone born within that time can feel a palpable shift between the way they were raised and the way things were back in the day and now. And I felt like this was something that I had to address in a weird way. I just felt inclined to, I felt pulled to draw attention to what I thought was a big issue. And the more research I did into it, the more I found people that were talking about the same thing in different ways. And Dr. Craig, you've actually helped me so much in terms of metabolizing what you've taught in your class, especially about paradigms, which I'll get into later as well, and and mythology and what myth we're living now. Is there something that's happening now that's reminiscent of ancient mythologies and archetypes, things like that? So I fused all of that together to try to place the time that we're in now as a mythological construct. If that makes sense. Okay. So again, just to say, I want to explore academically the overdependence and overconsumption of communication technology and social media using a mythological lens. And just going to read here. The objectives of this dissertation are A, to introduce the assertion that our age of technological innovation is an imbalanced consequence of the scientific worldview that began during the scientific revolution. B, to introduce a method of inquiry that suggests that our overvaluation and bias towards innovation, especially communication technology and social media, has displaced human wisdom. And we'll get into the definitions of wisdom in a bit. C, to reframe this imbalance as old myth that is no longer relevant. And D, to re-enchant the reader by attempting to introduce an emerging myth where the wisdom archetype, as personified by the Gnostic wisdom goddess Sophia, will be foundational. That is a mouthful. And I'll break it all down. I will go into every aspect and deconstruct it, and then we'll kind of weave this tapestry so that hopefully you guys can understand more what I was trying to say. What I did here was, sorry, it's a little hard to read. There we go. The price of technology's acceleration advance grew ever higher. And in the background of every pleasure and every achievement loomed humanity's unprecedented vulnerability. Under the West's direction and impetus, modern man had burst forward and outward with tremendous centrifugal force, complexity, variety, and speed. And yet it appeared he had driven himself into a terrestrial nightmare and a spiritual wasteland, a fierce constriction, a seemingly irrevocable predicament. And that was from Richard Tarnas's book, The Passion of the Western Mind, where he kind of the sweeping epic of the Western cultural advancement, both technologically, scientifically, and culturally. It's such a good book. And he actually goes into a lot of what I'm going to be talking about. I also have some notes here. Excuse me. I wrote in my introduction that this dissertation is, among other things, a foray into the mythical mindset. It is an intellectual pursuit of the enchantments and lingering motifs of storytelling, coupled with a modern problem cloaked in layers of archetypal symbols that seem to reemerge in different forms. By employing a primarily mythological lens, I'm attempting to place American society in a time of irrevocable changes in Western American society and psyche brought on by the overconsumption of social media and communication technology. Let's do the next slide here. So, the problem. Robert Romanician, whose books I read, both Technology, A Symptom and Dream, and also The Wounded Researcher, has this beautiful quote: with our technology, we have transformed the invisible depth of the world. We had made the invisible visible, and literally so. We have transformed the atoms from a way of experiencing the events of the world into an event itself capable of being experienced. We have, in short, exploded to depths. In speaking of the invisible, I do not mean to intentionally be vague or vaguely poetic. On the contrary, I mean only to point to that dimension of reality where myth and dream, hope and promise, belief and image animate our lives. And I mean to point us in this direction only because technology, even while it has the power to open this dimension, to realize the life of imagination, very much seems to take us in the opposite direction. And yeah, that is definitely what I see happening in terms of social media consumption. And when I say communication technology, I mean things like text messaging, emails, things like that. We are constantly bombarded, I think, with all of this information, barrage of information, constantly. What does that do to our psyche? What has that done to our psyche? What has that done to our soul? And my specific question is, has that affected our human wisdom in a way? Okay. As I move forward, Dr. Rushkoff, who is actually a teacher at, I believe, Queens College in New York, wrote a book called Throwing Rocks at the Google Bus, which was awesome. And also wrote a book called, was it, shoot, I'm so sorry, I forgot the name of his other book. But anyway, he said, when you strap a device to somebody that's going to ping and vibrate every time a company wants your attention, you're living in a state of perpetual emergency and interruption. We lose the ability to think critically of the world around us. I think that's absolutely true. I would add to that, I think we lose the ability to be critical of ourselves and harness our inner wisdom because it's being almost drowned out by everything else. This Team Human, that's the name. Thank you. So how do communication technology and social media affect the change in the American psyche? I will interweave that as I go on. This is just a cool picture that I found that I think personifies what we are dealing with every single day. We have our personal computing devices, we have our cell phones, we have our pads, we have our music devices, and there's so much. Where's the quiet, and where is the, I would have to say, the inner focus? Okay, so onto my methodology. I did use hermeneutics as, but with a pivot towards Romanician's alchemical hermeneutics, which he says is the art of letting one's soul have input into the research process, which spoke to me because this was not simply just a reconstruction of text. It was actually reading it to glean something emotional and soulful, and actually interweave what I interpreted into basically a theory that really hasn't been spoken about. In the research that I have done, nobody has spoken about wisdom, technology, and mythology in this way. So when I was doing my research, I actually let my soul honor what was on the page and vice versa, just see what I could almost feel into the words that I was reading, rather than just intellectually deconstructing it. Let's see. So, okay. So this dissertation explores many things, and there are lots of moving parts in it. I broke down Dr. Chalkwist's notions of paradigms, or theory of paradigms rather, which says is a worldwide paradigms organized around a central archetypal image. And he writes about 4 of them: Mother Nature, Heavenly Kingdom, the Big Machine, which is what I focused on, and Earthrise. So Mother Nature, I'll just get into that right now, actually. Sorry. Mother Nature, it's kind of self-explanatory. It's in a moment of, not a moment, but sorry. I am just a little bit turned around here. Sorry. Okay. Sorry. Okay. So first paradigm, Mother Nature, is classified by a worldview that is, I guess, relatively self-explanatory. The natural world was the powerful guiding force of all things, and humans were folded into its matrix instead of attempting to conquer and own it. The heavenly kingdom, which kind of breathed into life after that, classified by the surge of population growth, proliferation of intellectual pursuits, and advancement of technologies, as well as the rise of power systems, cultural, and religious hierarchies, and the establishment of the patriarchy. So that kind of led the way for the big machine paradigm, which I talk about more and use as a template for this dissertation. Big machine is marked by the emphasis on logic, empiricism, and natural science that was quoted by Dr. Chalquist. Scientific exploration, the Enlightenment, dying out, and retiring of old gods are now at the forefront of creation and believe themselves to be God creating the future. So basically, it's a focus on science and a turning away from the religious view. And Earthrise. This is marked by shifts in holistic living and meaning making. As the kids say, we're more woke in this paradigm, collecting the information and lived experiences of the past, discarding what no longer serves or is of value to humanity, and focusing on an inclusive worldview. Dr. Chalquist always says that these paradigms are not linear, but marked by psychological, social, and archetypal shifts. So while we do see examples of the Earthrise paradigm now, I believe that we're still very much so in the big machine paradigm, and we're still trying to expand and losing our ability to I guess focus on what's in here and what actually makes humanity possible, basically. Okay, so that's one template. And then I go into the Gnostic Sophia myth, which focuses on imbalance, the diminishment of wisdom, the shadow of social media and communication technology. And Dr. Joanna Kujawa, who is actually part of the Jung Society in Australia, she did a talk and she broke Sophia down into three aspects: the mythical, the philosophical, and as loss. I added in the dissertation also the psychological aspect of Sophia. So I worked with 4 of those to sort of break it down and break Sophia down and then reimagine her within the context of what the overuse of social media and communication technology is doing to us as human beings. And I said the mythology of the Gnostic wisdom goddess Sophia can help shed some understanding of the psychological and emotional spiral stemming from the use of these social platforms in American culture, and remind us that we can redeem ourselves from the shadows of our own descent. Jung says in Modern Man in Search of a Soul, says results can only be brought about when we have ventured into and emerged again from the darkness, and that to penetrate the darkness, we must summon all the powers of enlightenment that consciousness can offer. I go on to say that modern American society rather is awash with the Western paradigm of accomplishment, control over nature, and excuse me, unquestioned ownership with a singular focus. One acceptable path, decimation of competition and inevitable victory over adversity has helped shape much of Western society. The Western scientific paradigm is the ideological fuel that has powered the myth of the big machine, which refers to this current era that is witness to unprecedented scientific contributions by placing more value on rationality than holistic understanding. In the dissertation, I deconstruct wisdom and myth and really get into the past and how that has contributed to our definitions of what these, of what myth is and what wisdom is. I'm not going to really go into that right now, but I will say that I'm going to focus more on the Sophia myth and how that has affected my research within the technological realm and the social media and consciousness realm. Okay, so onto wisdom. So I did say, what is wisdom? Wisdom is an archetype, according to Jung, a divine name, according to Jeffrey Raff, who wrote The Wedding of Sophia. The ability to transmit a heritage, according to Robert Pope Harrison, who wrote Juvenescence. And the crossroads of good and evil, as discussed by both Plato and Aristotle. And then there's a different form of wisdom, which is the wisdom goddess Sophia, who is in a separate category all by herself. Harrison has a great quote on wisdom. He says, when we speak of culture, we mean the place where our predecessors live on, not only in the memories of their loved ones, but in the laws, customs, creeds, and knowledge that inform the culture in question. By enabling them to receive and transmit a heritage, wisdom confers on human individuals a cultural age that takes its measure from the span of generations and not from our biological years alone. So it basically means you should look to the past in order to be successful in the future. And my contention is that with the overconsumption of social media and communication technology, that we have stunted that, or we've become ignorant of that. I also go into Sophianic wisdom, which I will talk about in a minute, which is Sophia in the Gnostic tradition has been talked about as the wisdom of God, the predecessor or the consort, sort of, in the Father, Son, the Holy Spirit. She's considered the Holy Spirit. She is the wisdom, the immaterial wisdom, so not of this plane, and she's the both teacher and personification of wisdom. So she embodies both, and she is the bridge between humanity and truth. Now, I do go into, okay, let's save that for now. Sorry. I apologize. My notes kind of got a little bit messed up. I'm getting notes from my technical director over here. Okay. Hi, Christopher. I didn't say hi when you came in. Hi, Stefan. Okay, so well, let's just get into that. When I started to do research on Sophia, I kind of fell in love with her because she was this force, and also her story was like an epic movie. She in the Gnostic tradition, she was one of the eons of the highest high. So not the God that regular Christianity teaches us about, but the higher God, the God that is unknowable. And he had 12 emanations, and the lowest was wisdom, and she was there with her consort, Christ. Now, the story goes that she looked down and saw sparkling light below her. And she thought, oh, if I can gather that and bring it to the highest high, then I would gain favor and the highest high would love me. So she did that. According to some stories, she did it without her consort. She just went and did it on her own. So rebel, kind of like that. And when she got closer, she realized that it was not, it was not a figment of her imagination, but an illusion. But she was too close to the chaos and got pulled down into the chaos. And out of that, she gave birth to, and there's not a lot of detail as to how this happened, but she created or gave birth to a false god named Yaldabaoth, and he is a demiurge who in the Gnostic tradition is the false god and is the god that we are taught of He's the one that says you can't have any other gods before me. I am a jealous God. He is the one that actually made the Garden of Eden, so that Adam and Eve can live. And then the reason why that Eve took the apples, because the serpent in the garden was Sophia, actually, who came and said, no, this is, you have to know what the reality is, that you have to come out of this ignorance. So backing up a little bit, when Sophia created this false god, she lost a lot of her light. The demons who were created by this false god just siphoned off her light over and over again. Some stories call it a rape, other stories call it just an assault. We obviously, no one knows. But she was doomed to wander this material world and not be allowed back into what was called the pleroma, or the heavens, or the paradise. And she started to pray, and she prayed 7 times before Jesus, her consort, or the Christ, I should say, her consort, took pity on her, and with the help of Gabriel and Michael, actually tried to lift her out of this chaos. To ill effect, actually, because the demons saw that and dragged her down again and again and again. She kept praying. She prayed a total of 12 times to the highest light. And finally, Jesus, with the help of the highest light, came and helped her out and hid her so that the demons couldn't find her. But she left a piece of her light on this mortal physical plane. And some scholars believe that we carry that light of her within us, each and every one of us. And that light emanates in ways where we understand that we are of a divine nature, but we don't know what that is. We're confused. We're kind of wandering around lost. Jeffrey Raff, who is a Jungian as well, but who also studies Sophia, says the process of individuation is the way to bring Sophia's wisdom back into your heart and her light back into your heart, so that you can understand your true and full self. So that's such an epic story. And there's so many various versions of it. The one I gave you was the Valentinius version. So now, going back to Eridimes for a second, I also try to show that there are cyclical eras of humanity that keep showing up over and over again. So with Dr. Chalkwa's Eridimes, you have the heavenly kingdom, or you have Mother Nature, the heavenly kingdom, the big machine, and then Earthrise. With the different cycles of humanity throughout the world, it's basically the same cycle. It's things start off in this beautiful way, and then something happens to kind of twist that, where humanity spirals into ignorance, and then this apocalyptic thing happens, whether psychological apocalypse or actual apocalypse with the destruction of the world, and then things begin again anew. So I put that in there just to show the rise and fall of humanity, and to kind of imprint that against what I think we're living now is a technological apocalypse of sorts. So when the internet was kind of first created, it was this endless possibility. It was kind of like the pleroma of technology. It was just like this huge, beautiful space where anything can happen, anything can be created. And what we have now is not indicative, I think, of what the creators of social media and the internet and communication technology really had in mind. I truly believe that they had positive intentions for this, and how it got out of control. No one, well, I did explore that, but no one really knows for sure. And that's a picture of Sophia that I really love. So let's meditate on that for a sec while I get myself together. Now, okay. So I did go into her myth. Why Sophia? Because I think she does imprint a humanity into what I'm talking about. And she does kind of emanate this wisdom, and her descent and subsequent rise out of chaos, I think mirrors what we're going through now. I think the overconsumption of technology, communication technology, social media is kind of our descent, because it like I said, for clogs everything in our mind. And then my hope is that through Sophia, if we remember her, if we remember her myth and remember her archetype of wisdom, that we can remember who we are, who we actually are, and we don't have to rely on social media to fulfill us, to give us that dopamine hit, or to give us that fulfillment that we crave. And that Jeffrey Raff says the emptiness that we have, that searching that we have, is actually longing for Sophia. So just to get into Dr. Joanna Kujawa's, that's another picture that I love of her.
Laura, sorry to interrupt. I just want you to be aware of how much time you have left.
Oh, right. I have not been keeping time. I'm sorry. Have you, how much time do I have left?
About 20 minutes.
20 minutes. Okay. All right. Thank you, Dr. Craig. So I just want to read this quickly. Sophia is the wisdom of all things, and like the Chinese, reveals the path most in tune with an individual's nature. If individuals follow her example, they discover who they are and how best to express themselves in the world. If a society consisted of individuals living with Sophia, that society would reach for the highest cultural, moral, and spiritual levels. But of course, very few people listen to Sophia. She is not honored, nor is she respected. In fact, few would recognize her existence. She's lost in unconsciousness and wanders the world looking for those who will know her. So long as people ignore Sophia, she remains lost in the darkness and tainted by her lack of fulfillment. That's just another beautiful picture that I found of her. So to go into Dr. Joanna Kujawa's aspects of Sophia, I found this really, really fascinating. And I thought that breaking it down in this way would help me further explain and imprint what we're missing in terms of our technological consumption. So Dr. Kujawa says of this, Sophia is an inner sense of loss, an inner sense of longing to fulfill ourselves. It is the loss of our true identity. We're somehow feeling that we are more powerful than we are. And this is equally true for both men and women. Sophia is the same for both women and men, which means that we know that somehow we're not fulfilled, that somehow we are not reaching our potential, but we don't know why. Excuse me. So basically, she asked the question of what is this loss? What is this questioning? What is this desire? And she addresses that as this feeling of existential angst. Like, who are we? Why do we reach for things that we kind of know aren't going to serve us in a holistic way? And she goes on to say, philosophically, who is Sophia? Sophia is an intuition of your life, this rather quiet voice of your soul that very often goes against your rational mind, which says, no, this is too dangerous or too risky. Don't go there, don't do it. And I'm quoting her exact words, by the way. And Sophia, our intuition would say, maybe it's not good for you, but maybe it's good for your soul. So maybe the risk is necessary. It's a quiet voice, and sometimes it's difficult to distinguish that quiet voice. Like my favorite singer says in one of his songs, good things whisper, bad things shout. So it's really hard sometimes to listen to your inner. So to connect everything now, well, you know what? I'm sorry. Let's go to Sophia's mythic being. So in Pistis Sophia, when she called out, her story is the mythic story. So she called out prayers to the highest high. And when I told the story before, that is her being in her own myth and has her own archetypes associated with that, which is descent and redemption and wisdom as well. I failed to mention before that after she was removed from the chaos, the Christ came down as Jesus to help people understand gnosis and help eradicate the ignorance so that everyone on earth could know the true God. Sorry, let me just tie it all together. So part of what I was trying to do was not only show Sophia's story as a mirror of our own descent through social media and overconsumption, but I also tried to show her as an aspect of what we could be reaching towards in terms of our own redemption and in terms of our own bringing us out of our own ignorance. So, and I said, seemingly juxtaposed in the communication technology and social media industry, Sophia has no place. The former is a logical, purposeful, scientific industry and a means to connect with others used by billions daily, while the latter is an unpopular myth relegated to dusty shelves of fairy tales. However, to me, these seemingly opposite ideas lead to one philosophical truth. Together, they create balance. The information and communication technology industry needs the archetypal aspects that the wisdom goddess Sophia provides. There are too many people creating the digital reality we need to inhabit, leave behind a psychic fingerprint, their intent, motivation, ethics, and humanity, and they frequently are large groups of similar people who inherently think along similar lines and are not challenged by another point of view. Any myopic way of thinking that goes unchallenged and gets reinforced tends to become an ideology. We see this in religious intolerance, racism, and class wars. I posit that now we are beginning to see it in the world of communication technology and social media. Eastern traditions teach us that there cannot be harmony without balance. In my view, the balance comes from the goddess perspective, the holistic modus operandi. So just to keep in tune with time, yep. I said, were we to think of a physical moment when wisdom presented itself plainly to us, would it be words on a page, whispers in your ear, or a physical feeling, almost ancestral, cultural, not pointing but tugging at you when you head down the wrong path? Is blindly stumbling through 999 mistakes as Edison with all those failed light bulbs? Or actions towards each other, our words, our code, really our only choice to enlightenment, riches, and fame? Can cultivating our connection to Sophia and the divine wisdom be more sustainable, equal, and globally beneficial to help code, include, protect, and inspire us to connect, work, and play using communication technology and what we now call social media. Names change, but archetypes remain the same. Where are we? I contend we are at a crossroads. Humanity seems poised at a precipice, ready for the inertia of our technological culture to push us to our death or pull us back from the brink of complete inner annihilation. There's still hope for the integration of feminine wisdom aspects in the form of the archetype of the wisdom goddess Sophia, so that humanity may discover the effects of harmony and balance in our technological advancement. I feel that this is a good place to end, because I think any questions you might have, I can answer that. What does it all mean? I actually did that, yes, because I needed a little bit of humor. And I think hopefully I pulled it together in a way. This is a representation for me of the shadow of technology. It's scary. You don't know what it is, but it's there in front of you. And this is another wonderful picture by Luis Royo with the damaged wings of basically a robot angel being held and healed by an actual human angel. I think that was great. And this is what I perceive. This is one of my favorite online comics called Gunner Craig Court. And it's basically about what I just talked about, how to live with nature and technology together. In the middle is the representation of what I like to think is Sophia, balancing the two. These two girls are best friends. They were split apart because one was more interested in science and technology, and the other was basically a fairy who was called to the forest. And within the online comic, they become best friends, and they learn how to work together and integrate those two opposites. So thank you so much. I hope I did it kind of justice. I lost my way a little bit there, but I think I will end there, and I will answer your questions.
Thanks so much, Laura. If
Thank
you
you.
can unshare your screen there so we can all regather.
Yeah, sorry. Share, stop share. There we go. There we go.
Great.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
Oh my gosh, sorry. I'm so sorry. I lost a lot. I started sweating. Dr. Cornell, I thought about you when I started sweating so much.
Yeah,
What
well,
I've often seen in really rich topics like yours is that at some point the content that we're studying becomes the process by which we either work on it or present it. So it makes perfect sense.
yes.
So
Thank you.
at this point, we're going to, as a committee, ask a few questions of you. And as I mentioned earlier, we usually like to start with the external reader. So if you can get us going, that'd be great.
Okay, your last image kind of started to answer this, but it's also related a little wider. I'm wondering, I was going to ask, what do you see in modern culture that's working against the destruction of that's working to integrate Sophia back? But then I was also thinking, do you think there's anything hopeful in the fact that women are getting more visibly into government and business and things like that, so that it's not all the boys club, and just technology?
Yeah, that is a huge and awesome question, because when technology first started to happen, when computers were being invented, women were at the forefront. Grace Hopper and Ada Lovelace, all of these people, these women were really pushing that envelope, and even in NASA, when we landed on the moon the first time, the astronauts didn't trust the computer to do the mathematical the equations. They wanted a woman to do it. The computers, or were the women. And so I think there is a place for this holistic view and this integrative view. I don't know how to get into the boys club. That's the only thing. I think a lot of it has to do with just the bro culture, and unfortunately the the way they feel about women in general. Uh, Unfortunately, this 4 years of Trump has taught us that when you introduce something that is not quite the norm, or there's a huge retaliation. And I think women being in technology, they're retaliated against. And unfortunately, um, not abused, but what's the word I'm looking for? Real, just not welcomed. And so, yeah, I think there is a place. I think we need to push a little bit further, though, and a little bit harder to get in, or
Yeah.
do our own.
Do you really want to be in the boys club, or do you want to transform everybody so that they don't need the boys club? We're creating something new together.
See, that's my ultimate goal. That's
Right.
what I want to do.
Yes, that's what, when they started talking about women priests, women started saying, we don't want to be priests like you. We want a different
Yeah.
idea of leading the people of God, that it's a whole different thing, different way. And so,
Yes.
yes, so.
Thank you.
And
for that.
if there's anytime there's innovation, there's backlash. And I see Trump as the backlash, not just Trump, but all of that. It's
Yes.
backlash. We're losing our power. We're losing face. And so we need to hang in there, and then hopefully, and keep bringing Sophia into the world.
We will come out on the other side for sure.
Yeah, hopefully.
Like,
So we'll have the Sophia Club instead of the boys club.
when I can be the first members, let's do this.
So I was glad to hear even that cartoon. I mean, that's the way to start. You start with the little things that nobody pays attention to except the kids. Then the
Yes.
kids grow up and say, what are you doing? You're ignoring this whole thing,
Yes,
So,
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Yes.
Oh, you're welcome. I think that's all the questions I have right now.
Okay.
Okay, thank you so much. That was great. What a great conversation.
Yeah.
Jennifer, would you like to ask a question or two?
Sure, thank you. It was such a pleasure to listen to you, Laura, and see your images. I loved everything about your presentation, particularly the images at the end. I just thought that was a really nice way to tie things together. And I had other questions. I always have questions for you, but sort of following up on Doretta's question. I was thinking about a few years ago, I went to a Zapatista conference, and they also talk about, they use a framing such as, we don't want to take the power. We just don't want you to take power. We just don't want anyone to take power.
Right.
And this weekend, I'm going to a conference of the Feminism and Degrowth Alliance, which is an amazing international feminist group. And I noticed the entire conference is set up completely different than ordinary conferences. It's really looks like it's going to be just super collaborative, convivial, fun.
Great.
So, all right. So I have a couple things that I've always sort of teased you about in our back and forth comments. And one of them is about, given that we all want a new, different world in various ways, and that we're facing an existential crisis that we actually really need one to survive. You have this beautiful Tarnas quote in your presentation: the modern person bursts out like a centrifugal force, terrestrial nightmare, spiritual wasteland. I love that quote. And I think, obviously the West has brought such beautiful mythology and tremendous advances, but stepping into a different world, given the role, of the West in the colonization in various ways of global material realities and social imaginaries and such, how can we create a global conversation around this? And, might that involve just making Sophia open to globalness in some way that's acceptable? Or might it also involve a conversation about different cultures, symbols and archetypes and figures and such. So that's just an open question. I don't expect you to even have an answer. I think that's a tough question, but I'm curious what you might think about that.
Question, but it's such a great question, because I think the mythologies of the world have their own versions of Sophia. In Hinduism, it's Saraswati. I believe in Egyptian, it's Inyana, Isis. There's also Ishtar, both the one that's here and I got Ishtar. So I believe that the conversation is already open in terms of mythology. I think what really needs to happen is that people should start remembering the power of these goddesses. And I have this conversation with my partner all the time about India and Hinduism. My grandmother was Hindu, and so she really brought these beautiful images and philosophies of the goddesses. But then when you look at India and you look at what's been being done to women, I don't understand what the conflict is, because you're worshiping, on one hand you're worshiping goddesses, and on the other hand you're throwing acid in the face of women, and when their husbands die, you're decommissioning them to lower than untouchable caste. So I don't have a great answer for how we can do it, but I think it starts with remembering who the wisdom goddesses are and bringing them to the forefront in every culture.
I think that's a beautiful answer, and a really good step forward. Okay, I have one more question, which is, I've seen a lot come out very recently. So in some ways, I think some even since your dissertation was fairly finalized. So this is more of about going forward and next steps and where your work and research might go. But I have seen some work by thinkers like Zeynep Tufekci, the Turkish American scholar who's been very widely published, and the Canadian journalist Johan Hari and Rob Hopkins. Various people have written about different ways in which technology is stealing our focus, attention, concentration, memory. It's pretty significant, all the neuroscience now about this. So that's one angle that you might possibly, in some way, maybe it's outside your research purview, but that's just one thought about future directions. And one other thought about future directions is the conversation between your work and work on sort of other general social drivers of some of these same crises, and how do they relate to each other. So sometimes maybe you gloss a little bit talking about our technological society or civilization, and there's a truth in that, but there's also these other major drivers of our general social economic model, our horrific political model, as we see now with the war in that Russia is causing. I mean, there's a lot more causes going into it than that, but anyway. So yeah, do you have thoughts on your future direction and whether some of these other voices on what's impacting our technology might be influential, or possible other factors like economics and politics? I know it's a vast question, but
Yeah,
terrible with vast questions.
I love it. There's so much there. It is an onion. There's so many layers, and I feel like the thing that I explored was just one tiny piece, and I really would love to explore the politics of it and the economics of it, because I do touch on it in the dissertation. That is also, I think, a really good area for further research. Wisdom is fearless. Technology likes to make things smaller. Wisdom wants to insert herself and explode it. And I think in that sense, I really feel that looking at the different aspects of what has contributed to this basically spiral of our own wisdom, I would have to, or anyone who wants to take this anywhere would have to actually look at all the other different aspects, because nothing exists in a vacuum. And I feel like it's very much worth like a really deep dive. So I'm sorry if that didn't answer your question totally, but I feel for now that's what I can say about it.
Once again, I think that's a great answer, and it's, it's a large conversation, obviously.
Yeah, but thank you so much, Jennifer. I appreciate you.
So yeah, I'll turn it to you, Craig.
Okay.
Great. I so much appreciate the questions that both of you asked. Really great. And your responses, Laura.
Yeah, thank you.
Just before I ask my question, I want to just mention how much I appreciate the work that you're doing and how important it is, and how right from the very beginning you saw that there was a huge gap in the thought and practice of the entire technological realm. And your instinct on that, of course, was perfect. And since then, we've talked, you and your whole committee, we've worked with you about this, and these different mythic figures have emerged. And I was reminded at one point when you mentioned the Gnostic demiurge that for one of my classes, just for the fun of it, I did a natal chart on the internet. And I picked the time that it fully became a public appliance, so to speak. Yeah. And I thought about Yaldabaoth, the Gnostic demiurge who takes over the world and who's kind of a trickster figure. And because the natal chart looked kind of like half progressive and half psychopath, So I thought, wow, well, whatever this means, I don't know, but So anyway, you reminded me of that when you mentioned the demiurge. I mean, he's taken over Sophia's realm, right?
Yeah.
She needs to take it back. So my question has to do with this, actually. So let's say that I'm imagining somebody from some place in the world of technology, somebody who deals with it all the time, an administrator, a programmer, somebody, right? And then they hear about some of these ideas and they ask you, why does a myth matter? And they come from this real bottom line, like, what's the practical utility, right? That kind of question, So how will it help us to know anything about, for instance, Sophia or her sisters and other pantheons, White Buffalo Calf Woman, Athena, Saraswati, and the others, What difference does this make? So that's my question. The Yaldabaoth advocate question.
You've discussed that so much in all of your classes, and now I'm drawing a blank, so thank you. But it matters. We all know Star Wars, right? So that hero's journey and the steps that you take to become something, learn the lesson, come back, and reintegrate. All of what we do, I believe, is based in the archetypes of myth. Every decision we make, every step we take, and no matter what our circle of friends are, no matter what we choose to do with our lives, and how we choose to grow individually, has some branch in myth. And I didn't talk about him at all, but I did do some readings on Joseph Campbell. Obviously, he's the famous one. He's the one that brought myth and mythological thinking, I think, into the mainstream. And that's why I mentioned Star Wars, because it was because of his book that, George Lucas wanted to do this movie and really get into it. There are archetypes that imprint on us all the time. And Jung only thought of a couple of them, but wisdom is certainly one. I wasn't really happy with Jung's archetypes of the crone or things like that. So I didn't really, I looked further. But it matters because it's our path. It's our destiny. We need to know ourselves in order to walk a holistic path, in order to come back to ourselves in with wisdom, with technology, with and that's why story is so important. I felt for a long time that I wasn't sure if I was doing the right thing. I said, am I just getting old? And I'm like, kids, get off my lawn type of thing. You know, it's like this technology is, you know, is it really that big of a deal? Is it really? And I came to understand that it is that big of a deal because anecdotally, I see it in the kids that I work with at the grocery store that I work at. I see it in my cousins. I see the glimmer fading. And then when I start talking about these ethereal notions, or even just a more holistic way of thinking, their eyes are literally like this. And I'm like, I just want to be like, "Yeah, please understand, please know who you are, please try to discover who you are, not just I'm a dancer, I'm a tech bro, I'm a this, I'm a that, not in this physical realm. Please understand who you are on the inside, because that's going to go so much, that's going to take you so much further. And even if myths of your own people don't interest you, look at myths from everywhere else, because it's a pattern, and it's a pattern for a reason. And we have the same gods and goddesses that all over the world represent the same thing for a reason, that collective unconscious thing that Ian was talking about. So I think it's very important to learn about. I'm sorry if this is such a long-winded answer, Dr. Craig.
No, it's a great answer. Yeah, it's great. It's reminding me of something Hillman said about how myth is collective psychology.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Among other things, it's many other things too, but I'm reminded too of there was a conversation I had with my dad when he was still around, and my dad was basically Hephaestus. He liked to make stuff, especially with his hands, you know, and he said, well, why are you studying depth psychology and myth and all that ethereal stuff? And I said, well, my answer wasn't quite fair. I said, well, if you were working, you know, for Star Trek or Star Wars right now, or you were J.R.R. Tolkien, you'd be a billionaire because of myth, right? Not quite fair. But then after he died, and this is the real point, I went into his workshops. He squeezed like 7 sheds onto this little property. I mean, he was that into what he did, you know. And I saw his half-created electronic and other projects scattered around. And I thought, you know, this is where my dad's mythology was. He never liked going to church. He did it because my mom wanted him to. He didn't really believe in God, but although he was raised a Christian, but they were his temples, right? You know, but he didn't consciously make that connection. So he didn't realize the deeper implications of what he himself was doing every weekend. And that seems important, right?
Yes, it is important. Even if you don't know what you're doing, the fact that you're doing, and maybe, you know, just a little bit of, hey, this reminds me of this thing that happened in this story and this myth. And once it's in your consciousness, you can't get it out. So,
yeah. Hence the power of story.
Yes,
well,
sir.
Thank you so much. Great responses, great questions. And at this point, I'm going to ask Jonathan, will you put the committee in our own little discussion room? And meanwhile, while we're in there talking, I just want to invite the rest of you to say hi to Laura and ask questions and make comments while we're in there. We won't take too long.
Okay, thank you. Thank you guys so much. Thank you.
Sounds good. Here you go.
Hi, Laura.
Hi, Stefan. All right, truth. How much did I screw up? All right.
You're wonderful. You get to this point, you know, in CIS, you get to this point, your dissertation has been approved. So, and you know, this is more a presentation of the wonderful work that you've done, and it's a celebration.
I got lost in the sauce. I really did. There was so much I wanted to say and not
Yeah.
place. So.
Yeah, I think that's normal. That's not unusual. Yeah, but you're wonderful. It's so wonderful to see you get to this point.
Your face. Everyone's face.
I'm probably gonna have to get off in a couple of minutes because I'm actually working, and that looked like at a moment that looked like actually a god descending.
Seriously,
I thought,
right?
an angelic presence. Anyway, congratulations. And we're going to have to talk about paperwork and
Yes.
stuff like that going forward. So we'll be in touch.
Okay.
So,
Thank you, Kevin.
anyway, love you. You're great.
He's done.
Oh my God, that was amazing. Congratulations. I'm so proud of you. And like Craig said, the topic itself, like the work that you did in your dissertation is so huge. Like I couldn't even, grasp it all. So of course it would feel overwhelming and a lot, but you did really well. And like Craig was saying in the beginning also, this is a rites of passage. It's a formality actually. Like no one really tells you the truth about this process. Right? You've done all your work. You've been criticized. You've had thousands of reviews. How many times has it got turned back to you and they've told you, no, it's
So much probation. But
and so now it's actually a time to celebrate with the gem that you shared with us. And though that's only tiny and we would have loved more, it's really a celebration of what you've done and where you've been and the great work that you've achieved. So I just bow to you. The question that Jennifer asked you about where the research might go in the future direction. I'm curious, like what you're like, if you could dream up, not so much like from an academic perspective, but more what you would dream up for yourself with having done all this work, because you can't just walk away from it, right? It's like it's changed you. Sophia is like, she's like living in you. Like there's no doubt that you chose this because of your relationship to her, right? So I want to know, like, what will you do with this work in the world? Forget academia and I'm not saying, screw it all, but I'm saying like, what would your heart desire? Like if you had your druthers, what would you do with this? Because it's valuable, right?
yeah, oh my gosh, that's such a beautiful question. I do want to like Sophia, I want to travel around and present this to actually like high school kids and to people in community college, the people who don't have the advantages of getting like an Ivy League education and who have probably already learned this in private school. I want to bring that kind of I want the disenfranchised to be able to touch this. And I think I would love to start there.
That is beautiful. That is so inspiring. It's so
Thank
beautiful. Couldn't want anything more from you.
Mhm. Well, as you can see, contra what we were talking about at the very beginning, we didn't forget you. We are back. We are back now. And one of the things I love about chairing committees is that I get to be the one in circumstances such as this to say that you have passed your dissertation defense and to congratulate you, Dr. Jodha, on an excellent work. I love that part.
Yeah.
Especially in this case, because you did so much work on this. I saw you wrestling with it and in some parts and just moving right through it in other parts, which is how it always goes with a dissertation. There's tough stuff and then other things just flow, But it's been such a journey.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Oh my God. Thank you, Dr. Craig. Thank you, Dr. Cornell. Thank you, Dr. Jennifer. Oh my God. Thank you.
So I have one last assignment for you, which is to answer the question, what are you going to do to celebrate?
Oh my God. I don't, can we get Chinese food later? Sure. And I have Thursday, but that's okay. I'm gonna get out. I'm gonna do all the things that I wanted to do while this process is happening. Visit all the museums. Craig, you should come to New York soon. We should do something. All of you guys. All of
That'd
you.
be fun.
Yes.
New York field trip.
Yes. Yes. I show you around the real New York.
I've sometimes got the impression, since as you know, I'm interested in which myths show up in which places. And the Statue of Liberty always struck me as a good representation of the goddess Fortuna, who guides the rise and fall of fortune. So it'd be interesting to see what Fortuna and Sophia have to say to each other in New York somehow, since they're both there now. So
Do you know that today they're opening since COVID has been closed to visitors, and today its Statue of Liberty is open.
wow, that's great.
Yeah.
That is
What a great synchronicity. So Laura, for the rest of your life, you can say I became a PhD on the date that the Statue of Liberty reopened. Right.
okay. Ah,
You and Fortuna together.
Yeah. oh my, is there anything else I have to do, guys? Like what? I don't know what's next.
Just whatever paperwork is involved. So just being in touch with the school about stuff. If I need to sign off on anything, I will. We all will.
Yes.
So just that stuff, and I guess technical editing. So
Yeah, I have to send my stuff in.
Which is a pain in the neck, but
yeah.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
it's happy. It's a happy project. So
Yeah.
when you were talking, when we came back in, you were talking about high school kids and stuff like that. You might get into podcasts.
Yes.
That's a
Yeah.
great.
Yeah. Because it's kind of opposite from Sophia, but use the technology to spread it.
Yes. That's a great. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Piggybacking on that. So in some myths, it's actually the wisdom goddess who teaches the technologists. So Prometheus, who has all that technical skill and stuff, he learned it from Athena.
Yes.
So there's the potential for the Sophianic use of technology here, maybe.
Mhm. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Right now. That's an amazing suggestion, Dr. Burnell. Yes, I would love to do that.
Make
And
sure you
hold
let me know when you get it. When you the first one, let me know.
Yeah,
And
let
all
us
the
all
other ones.
know. Yeah.
I'll let you to be guests on it. Are you kidding me?
Well, I actually have to run, but I wanted to say congratulations again on all your soulful, heartful work.
Thank
And
you.
and just to say hi to the committee too. It was really an honor to be with both of you for this. So
Yes,
Likewise. Thank you so much, Laura and Craig, for including me. It's wonderful.
so
Yes.
much.
take care, everybody.
Take
And
care.
thank you, Laura. Yeah. Congratulations, Dr. Jodha. Yes.
Here, Laura.
Don't you love that?
Celebrate.
I was teaching when I got mine, and the kids all of a sudden started calling me Dr. Cornell. I was like, ooh. I didn't even hear their questions because I was getting so excited.
I almost feel like, no, I don't, please don't. But thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. Congratulations again.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Okay, bye, everyone. Yeah.